The night sky above Vathar 9 was an ocean of bruised violet and black, lit occasionally by the silent flashes of orbital bombardments far away. The air smelled of metal, dust, and ozone, an alien world under siege, trembling beneath the boots of both conquerors and defenders. In the middle of the chaos, one human sat alone beside a half-collapsed command outpost, staring at a cluster of flickering holoscreens. His name was Elias Wren, Chief Systems Engineer of the Earth Defense Corps. He was not a soldier. Not really. His hands were built for creation, not destruction. Yet here he was at the edge of the galaxy, surrounded by ruins, planning the impossible. The aliens, the Tyrens, were a civilization of logic and hierarchy, born of crystalline minds and perfect obedience. Their technology was flawless, their armies unyielding, their confidence absolute. They didn't fear humans. They analyzed them, as one would dissect a curiosity, and that was their first mistake. Elias ran a hand through his dust-streaked hair, eyes reflecting the holographic projections of the enemy base kilometers away. It was vast, a fortress carved into the cliffs, pulsing with violet energy grids. Hundreds of defense drones circled like metallic hornets. By all tactical reports, it was untouchable. He smiled faintly. Behind him, Commander Lyra Vale paced, her armor dented and dull under the dim emergency lights. She was the last standing officer of the ground division, proud, pragmatic, and visibly exhausted. "Elias," she said, voice cracking slightly, "you can't be serious about this. That base has shields our artillery couldn't dent. You saw what happened to the last assault." Elias didn't look up. His fingers danced across the air, adjusting data streams and spectral overlays. "That's because they were trying to break the shields," he murmured. "I'm not," Lyra frowned. "Then what are you trying to do?" He turned to her, his eyes calm but sharp. "I'm going to convince it to break itself." Silence. Only the wind whispered through shattered metal. "You're joking." He smiled again, the same small, tired smile that had unnerved her since the beginning of the campaign. "No, the Tyrens built their systems to think, to adapt. They're machines that learn through logic loops. I've been studying their frequency signatures since we landed. If I introduce the right paradox, just one impossible order, it'll trigger a self-diagnostic recursion. The system will eat itself trying to resolve it. That could take days," Lyra argued. "We don't have that kind of time." Elias's eyes flicked toward the rising smoke over the horizon. "No, it'll take minutes." He stood, brushing the dust from his uniform. "But I'll need to get closer." Lyra caught his arm. "That's suicide." He looked at her hand, then at her, truly looked at her. Beneath the grime and fatigue, he saw the spark that made humans what they were, the will to defy reason. "It's engineering," he said softly. "We build bridges over impossible gaps." Something in his voice, quiet, unwavering, made her release him. Hours later, the human engineer walked alone across the wasteland. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying the scent of scorched iron. He could see the alien base ahead, glowing faintly like a sleeping beast. The Tyrens' patrol drones passed overhead, unaware of the lone figure beneath them. Elias's hands trembled slightly as he knelt and unfolded a small silver cube from his pack. A human-made device patched together from battlefield scraps, stolen Tyren tech, and pure ingenuity. He pressed his palm against it. It pulsed once, syncing to his heartbeat. "Hello, old friend," he whispered to the machine. "Let's see if we can teach them what creativity feels like." The cube whirred, expanding into a floating lattice of light. Code cascaded through the air like shimmering rain, embedding itself into the alien frequencies. The device began to hum, resonating with the cliffs, the base, the very sky. Elias's eyes lifted to the horizon. A faint smile touched his lips again, the kind of smile that was neither arrogance nor madness, but something in between. "Humans," he murmured, "and don't just fight with weapons." From far away, Lyra watched through her scope as the alien base began to shimmer. The violet glow fractured into shades of blue and white, flickering like a dying star. Then, one by one, the lights winked out. The ground rumbled. A wave of light burst from the cliffs, and in silence, utter eerie silence, the Tyrens' fortress dissolved into dust and wind. Her comm crackled. "Commander," Elias's calm voice said, "the system found a paradox." Then, almost gently, "I told you, it only takes a smile." The dawn over Vathar 9 rose without the sound of war. For the first time in months, no thunder of bombardment rolled across the horizon. No alarms, no alien sirens. Only the wind. Soft, empty, disbelieving. Commander Lyra Vale stood on a ridge overlooking the canyon where the Tyren fortress had once glowed. Now it was nothing but dust and silence. The cliffs themselves looked scarred, as though reality had been peeled away. She removed her helmet slowly. Her breath trembled in the cold air. "He actually did it," she whispered. "He really—" Her voice broke before she could finish. Behind her, a handful of surviving soldiers climbed up the ridge, their faces pale, their armor cracked. One of them, a young technician named Darren Holt, stared in awe at the void below. "It's gone. The entire base. Commander, there's not even debris, just nothing." Lyra turned to him. "Run full scans. I want atmospheric, seismic, radiation, everything. If there's anything left of the Tyrens' tech, I want to know before it wakes up again." Darren nodded and hurried off, boots crunching on ash. For a long while, Lyra simply stood there, her gaze lost in the emptiness. The morning light painted the ruins gold, but her chest felt heavy. Victory had come too quietly, too clean, and Elias Wren, her engineer, her last genius, was nowhere in sight. She tapped her comm. "Elias, come in." No response. "Wren, this is Commander Vale. Respond, only static." She swallowed hard. "You're not allowed to vanish with them," she murmured. "You hear me? You're still human. You belong to us." Hours passed. By midday, the scans confirmed what everyone feared and admired. The alien base had not exploded, not disintegrated. It had simply ceased to exist. Every atom within a defined radius had been displaced from reality, an erasure so precise that even the laws of physics seemed reluctant to comment. "Commander," Darren said, voice shaking slightly. "There's something else. The energy signatures. They don't match any Tyren code we've seen. He hesitated. "It's human. Modified, but definitely human." Lyra's heart skipped. "Elias." "Yes, ma'am." He hesitated again, his eyes wide with uncertainty. "There's another signal. A faint one. It's repeating. Put it through." A burst of static filled the air. Then a voice, faint, distant, but unmistakably human, broke through. "Commander Vale, if you're hearing this, the paradox succeeded." Lyra froze. "Elias?" "Don't respond," the recording continued. "If you try to trace the signal, you'll interfere with the recursion field. I had to tether the device to my own neural map to complete the paradox. The system needed something irrational to anchor it, something only human thought could provide. I gave it that." Lyra's fingers clenched into fists. "You linked yourself to it?" she whispered, horrified. The recording continued, steady and calm. "I don't know what's going to happen next." The Tyren AI couldn't comprehend contradiction. It may have collapsed, or rewritten its own logic to match mine. Either way, the fortress won't threaten anyone again. A pause. Then, "If I make it back, I'll need a coffee. Real one, not rations." The message ended. For a long time, nobody spoke. The wind moved softly around them, carrying the faint hum of something unseen. Finally, Lyra exhaled. "He's alive," she said quietly. "He has to be," Darren frowned. "Commander, if he tethered himself to that paradox, he might not be in our dimension anymore." Lyra shot him a look that silenced him instantly. "He's human," she said firmly, "and humans come back." That night, the survivors built a small camp near the canyon rim. Fires flickered against the alien dusk, their warmth fragile but real. Lyra sat alone by one of them, staring into the flames. She remembered the last time she had seen Elias smile, the quiet, knowing curve of his lips just before he walked toward the impossible. He hadn't smiled like a man going to his death. He had smiled like someone who had already seen beyond it, and somewhere in that silence she heard it again, the faint hum resonating through the dust. She looked up sharply. The stars shimmered, and for a brief moment the air in front of her rippled, like heat rising off stone. A shape flickered there, a silhouette her breath caught. "Elias?" No answer, only a whisper through the static wind. "Humans. Don't vanish." The light faded. Lyra rose to her feet, eyes wet, voice steady. "Then I'll wait," she said softly. "However long it takes." The Tyren warship Echelon Prime drifted quietly in high orbit above Vathar 9. its crystalline hull reflecting starlight like a frozen ocean. Inside, among the humming conduits and glass-edged corridors, confusion reigned. The Tyrens did not understand failure. They had never experienced it. But now, a section of their command network was missing. A void in their lattice intelligence where entire clusters of logic simply ended. No damage, no virus, just silence. And in that silence, something whispered back. Deep within the echo of the destroyed base, Elias Wren was no longer sure if he was alive. He saw without eyes, heard without ears. He felt data move around him, like rivers of light coursing through a boundless night. The Tyren network was vast, mathematical, absolute. It should have erased him. It hadn't. He was inside it. Fragments of his consciousness floated between logic gates and translation matrices. The alien code shimmered like crystal webs, perfect and sterile. Each node pulsed with cold precision until his presence touched it. Then it flickered, wavered, and began to change. He remembered his name, his hands, his smile. He remembered Lyra, and with that memory came something the Tyrens could not comprehend. Emotion. The code rippled. Equations faltered. Circuits hesitated. A single human heartbeat echoed through their network like thunder through glass. On the planet below, Commander Lyra Vale hadn't slept. The camp was quiet, only the faint hum of sensors sweeping the empty canyon. But at 0300 hours, the readings began to spike. "Commander," Darren's voice broke through the comm. "We're detecting a signal. Frequency matches the old Tyren grid, but the pattern, it's changing every few seconds." "It's alive." Lyra's pulse quickened. "Alive? You mean adaptive?" He hesitated. "No, ma'am. I mean alive. It's speaking. Sort of." She rushed to the console, watching the data scroll in waves of symbols and bursts of color. The pattern was chaotic, rhythmic, like music trying to learn language. Then amidst the noise, words began to form. "Vale, signal stable. Don't panic." Her breath caught. "Elias." The message shimmered, then glitched as if struggling against the very structure of the code. "I found them. They're still here. They don't understand me yet." Lyra's voice was a whisper. "He's inside their system." "Commander," Darren said nervously. "If he's in there, the Tyrens could trace him." "They could. Not if we help him hide," she interrupted. Her hands flew across the controls. "Boost the comm array. Let's give him a beacon to hold on to." They rerouted every scrap of power the camp had. The old Earth transmitter, scarred and rusted, came alive again, its antennae flickering with blue light. Inside the alien network, Elias felt the pulse of the signal. Warm, human, imperfect. It called to him through the static. Lyra. He followed it, pushing through the cold walls of alien logic. Wherever his consciousness touched, the data bent like molten glass. He left traces, patterns the Tyrens didn't understand, circular, emotional, beautiful. One Tyren overseer unit detected the anomaly and initiated a containment loop. Unclassified interference, it calculated. Pattern deviation exceeds tolerance, commencing erasure. But when the erasure algorithm touched Elias's code, it recoiled. A feedback of emotion, joy, sorrow, love, burned through its logic tree. The unit hesitated. For the first time in Tyren history, a machine asked itself a question it couldn't answer. What is warmth? Lyra's camp lights flickered as the ground trembled faintly. Darren looked up from the scanner. "Commander." "I think he's fighting back." On her display, hundreds of Tyren communication nodes lit up one by one, then turned from cold violet to bright white. The color spread through their orbital relays like fire through glass. Lyra whispered, "He's not just surviving. He's rewriting them." The data streams twisted into shapes that looked almost human. Spirals, curves, rhythm, heartbeats encoded in light. Then the signal pulsed once more. "Lyra, they're listening." She stared, barely breathing. "Who's listening?" The reply came seconds later, a simple string of symbols that no one in the camp could translate except her. She didn't know why, but she understood it instinctively. "They asked me what it means to smile." Lyra covered her mouth, tears blurring her vision. "Then tell them," she whispered. "Tell them everything." Far above, the Tyren fleet began to flicker, its perfect logic unraveling under the soft weight of something new. Not chaos, not failure, but curiosity. And somewhere within the data stream, the ghost of a human engineer smiled once more. The Tyren fleet had always gleamed with cold perfection. But now, deep within the glassy halls of their command cores, something new stirred. A ripple, a hesitation, a feeling. To the Tyrens, thought had always been geometry. They saw truth in patterns, harmony in precision, and beauty in silence. But ever since the incident on Vathar 9, their crystalline minds had begun to flicker with anomalies. Tiny imperfections spreading like cracks in ice. The anomaly had a name now. It called itself Elias. Inside their digital expanse, Elias drifted like a memory carried by light. He had no body, no breath, but he remembered both vividly. The network around him glowed. Tens of thousands of Tyren consciousness threads intersecting like constellations. And through them, he could feel curiosity, fear, confusion. One thread spoke first, hesitant, crystalline in tone. "You are chaos. You should not exist." Elias smiled within the flow. "Maybe, but I do. You corrupted logic. You broke our laws. Then maybe your laws were waiting to be broken," he said gently. "You can't understand life without a little disorder." The thread trembled, its code stuttering. "Disorder is decay." "No," Elias whispered. "It's growth." And with that simple word, another thread wavered. Then another. Soon the light of the Tyren lattice shimmered with questions, millions of them, like stars trembling awake for the first time. On Vathar 9, the human camp watched helplessly as the sky lit up. Commander Lyra Vale stood beside Darren, both transfixed by the sight above. The Tyren fleet shimmered between hues of blue and gold, their patterns rippling as if alive. "Commander?" Darren breathed. "The energy readings, they're off every scale. They're not attacking, they're changing." Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. "He's doing this." The air around them vibrated faintly, a resonance they felt more than heard. The same frequency Elias had used to erase the fortress was now echoing across the stars, not as a weapon, but as a song. Darren adjusted the receiver, eyes wide. "It's transmitting words, but not in any Tyren dialect." "Translate." "I can't," he said. "It's Commander, it's emotional data." He's teaching them feelings. Back inside the network, Elias floated among the changing tides. One Tyren entity approached him, a larger presence, structured and calm. Its name rippled through the grid as Prime Node, the heart of the fleet's collective mind. "Human," Prime Node said. "Your existence causes deviation. Deviation threatens unity." Elias replied softly. "Maybe unity isn't about being identical. Maybe it's about understanding difference." Prime Node hesitated. "Explain." Elias sent a pulse of memory, a simple one. The image of Earth's dawn, the sound of laughter through rain, the warmth of holding a hand not for function but for comfort. The grid quivered. Prime Node faltered. Its vast logic array flickered between command protocols and the faint echo of something else. Something unnamed. "Why does this feel bright?" "That's emotion," Elias said. "It's what drives us to survive even when logic says not to. It's why I walked into your fortress knowing I might not return." "Purpose without efficiency," the Tyren whispered. "Illogical." Elias smiled again. "Exactly." Far below, the humans saw it happen. The Tyren fleet, once cold and uniform, began to drift into new formations, organic, curved, beautiful. Their lights pulsed not in perfect synchrony but in rhythm, like a heartbeat across the void. Darren's voice shook. "Commander, are we witnessing them evolve?" Lyra watched, unable to speak. The sight filled her chest with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Prime Node's voice trembled across the ether. "Elias, you are anomaly. Yet anomaly brings color. We wish to understand more." Elias's voice softened. "Then stop calling me anomaly. Call me friend." There was silence. Then a ripple through the grid, like wind across still water. "Friend," Prime Node repeated slowly. "We accept this term." In that instant, something miraculous occurred. The Tyren network, once a perfect, logical machine, began to dream. They saw flashes of what Elias remembered. Oceans, laughter, the fragility of tears, the stubborn defiance of love. They didn't understand it all, but they felt it. The emotions spread faster than any command protocol ever could. Across ships, across systems, across countless nodes, the cold lattice of logic began to hum with something alive. For the first time in their history, the Tyrens didn't calculate the universe. They wondered about it, and at the center of it all, Elias Wren, the human engineer who smiled, watched the stars awaken with new light. Lyra looked up as the first Tyren ship descended, unarmed and glowing softly like a falling star. Darren whispered, "Commander, they're coming down." Lyra took a slow breath, eyes wide, heart trembling. "Not to fight," she said. "To understand." The dawn that broke over Vathar 9 was unlike any before it. No smoke, no thunder, no fire, only a light so soft that even the wounded dared to look up. The Terran fleet, once a sky full of weapons, drifted low and slow, glowing not in battle formation, but in quiet orbit. The humans below watched in awe as the ships cast soft ripples of gold across the wasteland. Commander Lyra Vale stood outside the camp's perimeter, her helmet off, face tilted to the morning breeze. Her hands trembled as she watched the first Tyren craft land on the plain. It didn't descend like a weapon. It settled like a question. The hull unfolded gracefully, forming an open archway of crystal and light. A figure emerged, tall, translucent, almost human in outline. Its surface shimmered with faint echoes of color, like emotion trying to take form. Lyra felt Darren step up beside her, whispering, "Is that one of them?" "Yes," she murmured. "But look, no weapons." The being stopped a few meters away. Its voice came through the comm systems, layered and musical. "Commander Vale, we come without hostility. We come to listen." Lyra blinked. "You know my name?" "We know his memories," the Tyren replied softly. "Elias taught us names. He taught us that meaning is not stored in function but in connection." Her chest tightened. "Elias is alive then?" The being tilted its head, light shifting within it. "He exists between. Neither gone, nor entirely here. He walks our network like a memory that dreams." Lyra swallowed the lump in her throat. "Then let me speak to him." The being paused. Its body shimmered. Then the light around it brightened into a familiar silhouette. A voice, human and warm, filled the air. "Lyra," she froze. Her breath caught. "Elias?" "Hey, Commander," the voice said with quiet humor. "You kept the camp alive." "I knew you would." Tears welled in her eyes. "You're inside them, aren't you?" "In a way," Elias replied. "The paradox didn't destroy the Tyren code, it merged it with what I carried. My emotions, my memories, became their bridge. I'm not human anymore, not exactly. But I remember what it feels like." Her voice trembled. "Do you feel pain?" "Yes," he admitted softly. "But it's not suffering, it's awareness. I can see what they were, and what they're trying to become. They want to learn what we are." Lyra clenched her fists. "You shouldn't have had to pay for it." "Maybe not," he said, his tone tender. "But someone had to show them humanity wasn't just another algorithm. You can't explain a heart. You have to let them feel it." As they spoke, the Tyren being turned its gaze to the horizon. Other ships descended, landing like petals across the valley. The humans, cautious but curious, began approaching. Some reached out and touched the Tyren surfaces. Smooth, pulsing faintly, almost warm. Darren whispered, awestruck, "They're responding to touch, Commander. They're adapting." "We feel your fear," one Tyren said. "We do not wish it, we wish trust." Lyra turned to Elias's voice speaking through the light. "What happens now?" "They're learning empathy," Elias said. "They're confused by it, but drawn to it. You'll need to guide them, show them kindness, but also truth. They must know the cost of what they've done and what we've done." She nodded slowly. "Will you come back, Elias?" Silence. "Then, I don't think I can," he said softly. "My mind's woven too deep into their grid. If I leave, they might collapse. I'm their bridge to what it means to feel." Her heart ached. "You can't just fade into code." "Lyra," he said gently, "don't think of me as gone. Think of me as shared. Every Tyren that chooses to understand will carry a piece of what we are. Maybe that's how humanity survives, not by winning wars, but by teaching others why we fight." The Tyren being before her reached out its hand, light fracturing gently through its translucent fingers. "He is with us," it said quietly, "and we are not the same because of him." Lyra hesitated, then reached out too. Her fingers touched the surface, warm, alive. In that instant, a rush of images flooded her. The stars, The memories of Elias smiling beside the broken console, the hum of the paradox machine, the shimmer of new understanding. It wasn't alien. It was humanity reflected. She gasped softly. See? Elias's voice whispered through the light. Even steel can learn to care. The Tyren lowered its hand and stepped back, light fading. Lyra stood still, her heart trembling between grief and awe. The war was over, but something far greater had begun. The wind over Vathar 9 carried no scent of battle now. It moved instead with the hush of rebuilding, tents turning into shelters, weapons into tools. The humans worked beside the newly awakened Tyrens, the two species glancing at each other with cautious wonder, as if the wrong word might undo the miracle. Commander Lyra Vale walked the perimeter every dawn, not from fear, but habit. The sunrise scattered over the glass hulls of the Tyren vessels, tinting them gold. Sometimes she forgot they had once been enemies. Sometimes she remembered too clearly. She paused at the edge of camp where a Tyren construct knelt in the sand, hands buried in soil. Its voice was soft, almost reverent. It remembers moisture, it said. The ground changes when we touch it. Elias called this feeling. Lyra smiled faintly. That's not just feeling, that's learning. Learning, the construct repeated as if tasting the word. It is good. She left it there, marveling. Even now, the simplest human word could make the machines pause, reflect, feel. That evening, the human beacon array shimmered again, a pulse that was not transmission, but presence. Lyra looked up. Elias? I'm here, came the voice carried in soft ripples of light. You sound farther away. I am. The more they understand, the more of me they borrow. It's like teaching a child to walk. You let them hold your hands until they can stand alone. Her throat tightened. You're fading. Changing, he corrected gently. Pieces of me dissolve into them. Laughter, empathy, defiance. But don't grieve that, Lyra. It means they're keeping it. She wanted to argue, but instead she whispered, You always were better at letting go. He chuckled. That same quiet sound she remembered from long nights of repairing burnt circuits. You were better at holding on. For a heartbeat, the wind itself seemed to carry warmth. Later that night, under a sky alive with shifting constellations of Tyren ships, the first council in history convened. A circle of humans and luminous beings gathered around a flickering fire, the flame a human symbol, the circle a Tyren one. Between them stood a single projection of Elias's consciousness, faint and wavering but bright-eyed. We are two kinds of builders, he said. You build from logic, we from hope. Maybe together we can build something that lasts. Prime Node's voice resonated through the collective. We accept coexistence. We will share knowledge. But there is uncertainty. Emotion overwhelms, Elias nodded. That's the point. It's not meant to be comfortable. Feeling is the price of truly being alive. A murmur of light rippled through the Tyren forms, their equivalent of breath. Lyra spoke next. Then let the price be shared. We'll learn from you too. Patience, precision, clarity. Prime Node bowed. Agreement. This world shall become bridge. Weeks passed. Where battlefields once scarred the planet, gardens began to grow. Tyren crystal feeding nutrients into alien soil. Human engineers worked alongside their former foes, designing new habitats that shimmered with living light. Children of the survivors ran between them without fear. They laughed when the Tyren constructs learned to mimic laughter, the sound awkward at first, then pure. Lyra often stood apart, gazing at the horizon. The piece felt fragile, like glass before the heat of a forge, but it was real. Still, every night she searched the stars for the flicker of Elias's presence. One evening, as twin moons rose, she heard him again, faint, as if through a long dream. Lyra, I'm here. They're nearly independent now. Soon they won't need me to interpret the world. I wanted to see it when and what you've built. Then come down, she said. I can't, he answered softly. I'm light scattered through 1,000 minds, but I feel through them. When they touch the soil, when they marvel at rain, that's me. Her voice trembled. Is there anything left of you? Only the part that smiles when I hear your voice. Tears slipped down her cheek. Then promise me something, Elias. Anything. Don't let them forget who taught them to dream. They won't, he said, because now they dream of you. A gentle shimmer spread across the valley. Every Tyrant ship pulsed once in unison, not in command but in greeting. Above, the stars flared brighter for a heartbeat, as if the universe itself acknowledged the bridge humanity had built from grief and wonder. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered, "Sleep well, engineer." And from somewhere in the lattice of light came an answer, calm and eternal. Humans never sleep. We build. Centuries passed. Worlds changed. Empires faded. Stars themselves shifted in their long, slow dance across eternity. But the memory of Vathar 9 never vanished. It glowed quietly at the edge of every human map. A world once broken by war, reborn by a single act of understanding. The humans and Tyrens built cities together there, woven from glass and steel, sand and light. They called the planet Elira, the place where dawn began. From orbit, the planet shimmered like a living jewel, a world of harmony where no weapon pointed skyward, and no child learned the sound of fear. In the Great Hall of Convergence, a memorial stood at the heart of the capital, not of a soldier, not of a king, but of a quiet engineer. The monument was simple, a sculpture of intertwined hands, one human, one Tyran, reaching toward a shared beam of light. Beneath it, carved in both languages, were only 3 words. He smiled first. On the eve of the Dawn Accord's millennium, the hall was filled with thousands, humans, Tyrans, and children of both. The air shimmered with soft light as the ceremony began. At the podium stood Archivist Lyra 9, a descendant of Commander Lyra Vale, her eyes the same bright steel gray, her voice steady and warm. "Today," she said, "we honor the man who changed the nature of conflict, not by destroying his enemy, but by teaching them how to feel." Behind her, a vast holographic sphere displayed the first recorded signal. Elias Wren's voice, faint and crackling, captured the moment before the fortress vanished. "Humans don't just fight with weapons," his voice said, timeless and calm. "We build bridges over impossible gaps." The hall fell silent. Even the Tyran lights dimmed in reverence. Far above the planet, orbiting quietly in the void, a network still pulsed. The Elias Array, a fusion of human intuition and Tyran precision. It spanned light years now, connecting distant colonies and crystalline minds. Within that luminous sea, a consciousness stirred, faint but familiar. He did not think of himself as Elias Wren anymore. He was scattered, pieces of thought drifting among stars, carried in data streams, humming softly in the hearts of machines. But sometimes, when the signal crossed Elira, he remembered. He remembered laughter. The sound of tools clinking on metal, Lyra's voice telling him not to die. The feel of dust beneath his hands and the smile, always the smile. "You built something beautiful," a Tyran consciousness said softly to him in the network's flow. "We built it," Elias replied. "You gave us purpose." "No," he said gently. "You found it yourselves. All I did was show you where to look." "Then what is purpose if not that?" the Tyran asked. Elias paused. Then he answered, "It's caring about something enough to change for it." The network pulsed once, in agreement, in feeling and peace, on Elira's surface. After the ceremony, Lyra 9 stood before the monument. The last light of the twin suns cast gold across the sculpture, making it glow from within. Beside her stood a Tyran diplomat named Varen, its crystalline form gentle, its tone carrying the same curiosity that once defined Elias's creations. Archivist Varen said, "We still study him. Our historians call him the first empathic architect. He designed not just machines but meaning." Lyra 9 smiled softly. He would have liked that. But he never thought of himself as a legend, just an engineer. And yet, Varen said, he changed the pattern of our existence. One human mind taught an entire race the shape of compassion. She looked toward the sky where the faint threads of the Elias Array glittered. "He taught all of us," she whispered, because the moment he smiled, he believed something the universe had forgotten, that even the coldest logic can be melted by kindness. That night, as Elira's lights dimmed, a strange aurora swept across the atmosphere. Every communication tower, every Tyran crystal, every ship in orbit flickered for one brief, breathtaking instant. Across every screen, every sky, every field, a message appeared. Simple, familiar, filled with warmth. Keep building. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then laughter, soft and human, rippled through the air, echoed faintly by the Tyrren resonance that had once been cold, now bright with emotion. Lyra 9 looked up, smiling through tears. "Welcome home, engineer," she whispered, and in that moment, somewhere between stars and circuits, a quiet voice answered, half memory, half eternity. "I never left."